Andy MacDonald.
I congratulate my honourable friend, the member for Easington, in securing this important debate. My father served with the army in Palestine from 1945 to 1948 during the currency of the British Mandate, and he didn't speak much about it, but he did tell me at the end of his tour of duty he had a chit for leave to spend the last night in Jerusalem, but his comrade pleaded with him to let him have the chit as he wanted to see a girl in town. He'd fallen in love with her and didn't know when he'd see her again, so he was desperate. My dad let him have the chit, but sadly the vehicle that took the soldiers into town that night was attacked by terrorists, and the seat that the love-struck soldier sat in bore the brunt of the attack, and he was killed outright. That could have been my dad's seat. There were other terrorist attacks on trains and famously on the King David Hotel, and of course amongst those terrorists were Menachem Begin and Yitzhak Shamir, who both went on to hold the highest office in the newly formed State of Israel. The point I'm making, Madam Deputy Speaker, is of course that committed individuals and groups who pursue self-determination may at one time be deemed as terrorists, but then perceived as freedom fighters and ultimately statesmen. And we need look no further than the journey made by the great man Nelson Mandela, and indeed a glance across the water to the island of Ireland. I will indeed.
To my honourable friend, like him, my dad served in what was then Palestine in the late 1930s before the outbreak of the Second World War. And I think where the point that I would like to make is different from the other 135 countries who recognised Palestine. Our recognition would be quite different because we were the protectorate. We were the power that held the mandate of protection over the area of Palestine, which subsequently became Israel and Palestine.
I thank my honourable friend for that point. It's a very, very powerful one. We've got such strong historical links in Palestine. These are responsibilities that we bear, and I do disagree. I think the world will look to this chamber and will look to see what the British Parliament says about these important issues. And indeed, as the honourable member for Mid-Sussex said, the Balfour Declaration made it abundantly clear when expressing that this country would use its best endeavours to establish a national home for the Jewish people, but nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine. On any reasonable interpretation, whilst clearly a national home for the Jewish people was of course created, it cannot be said that the interests of the non-Jewish people have not been prejudiced. Palestinian people are prisoners in their own land, and it's been said on innumerable occasions that a Palestine state is not a gift but a right, and I agree wholeheartedly with that sentiment. And when such a right exists, it is simply not acceptable that the right should be denied or that conditions should apply. I know that some say that the state of Palestine should only be recognised on the conclusion of successful peace negotiations between the Israeli government and the Palestinian Authority. If that were to hold sway, Madam Deputy Speaker, that would simply continue the injustice forevermore. That would be to put the cart before the horse, and worse still, would simply exacerbate the situation. Can we really say with any sincerity that Benjamin Netanyahu will put his name to preconditions leading to the creation of the Palestinian state that would ever be acceptable to the Palestinian people? We are all agreed that the actions of Hamas in launching missile attacks were abhorrent, but what hope are we offering to the Palestinian people? Imagine some coastal areas of our own land being blockaded and starved, or bulldozers rolling in, destroying the properties and farms of innocent people. What would we expect those people to do? Simply lie down and accept such brutality? No. Any people in those circumstances would fight with whatever they could lay their hands on to protect themselves and fight back. It's a basic instinct, and you can bet your bottom dollar the British would do it. Yes, the death of an Israeli soldier and an Israeli civilian is a tragedy every single time it happens. But dropping bombs on innocent people in Gaza and killing thousands and annexing more and more land is not the answer, nor is it in any way justified. Do we really think that any of these actions will bring about peace? One day a Palestinian state will exist, and with it there will be the hope of peace and prosperity of its people. Every day that the Palestinian state is postponed merely guarantees the continuation of the conflict, with more innocent people losing their lives. We owe it to all those who have lost their lives on both sides thus far, and those whose lives are constantly at risk, to bring this tragedy to an end by recognising the Palestinian state without further delay.